Yes, hi, you're back with Valencia Construction. Today I'm going to give you guys a few tips on how to install a backsplash with a glass stone mosaic tile. This is one of the more difficult tiles to install. So as you can see, I've already started here. Now the first step is I got my laser line on the wall. I determined exactly where I want the top of the tile to land. The countertop is out of level by 1/8, which is not a big deal. But when we're dealing with a glass tile like this and the grout lines inside the individual tiles are so small, you really need to be precise with your line. So basically, I have my grout float here and I'm using that just to push down on every single tile to make sure that it adheres to the wall. If you have any tiles that are loose, when you go to grout it, you'll notice a little tile might be flipping around in the air. So you want to make sure you have good adhesion to the wall. And I'm basically following my line and I'm just going along. The trick is you don't want to know where one tile stops and the other tile begins. If you guys want to take a look, this is the tile that we're using. It's basically a 12 by 12. It comes on a mesh on the back. So when your tile is basically locked into the one next to it, you don't want to see where one tile stops and the other one starts. You want it to look like one continuous piece, ideally. So what I always do is I lay the tile over here on the floor. I'll show you. And I just want to make sure that the next tile will lock into the first one nicely, because sometimes the tiles are crooked on the mesh and they won't line up. So we can see this one lines up, pretty well. There's a few, this one here is a little bit, out of place, but we can play around with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this tile in. Now I'm going to try and get it where I want it to go from the very beginning. So I don't need to move it around. This wall adhesive is really sticky. Once you stick your tile on, it's really hard to shift it around. So I want to get it in place as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I also want to make sure that all the tiles are nice, there are no broken pieces, none of the tiles are too crooked on the mesh, and this piece seems okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Now, there aren't really any instructions I can give you, really it's just practice. You've got to kind of have a knack for it. Set it in place. You want to make sure your grout lines look nice. You don't want it to be too big, too small, you want to keep it consistent. And also, you want it to line up with the laser line up there, more or less. I'm about 1/16 below the laser line, so I'm going to follow the tile that I have over here. The laser line is basically to guide me. If I'm off by 1/16 or 3/32 of an inch, that's not a big deal. I have that much room to play, but not much more than that. So don't go off the line too far, or else you're going to have a hard time when you get to the end. So that tile is basically where I want it to go. I'm going to check all the grout lines in between the two tiles, make sure everything looks consistent. Then I'm going to use my grout float and I'm going to push it into place like so. Again, I want to make sure I get every tile stuck to the wall. I don't want any tiles to be loose. So I'm going to go over it with my grout float everywhere. I'm going to go over the two tiles together at the joint so I make sure they're true to each other. And that's basically it. I'm going to continue. Now when you get to the outlets and the openings and wherever you have to make a cut, there it gets a little bit trickier. I'll leave that for our next video. For now I just want to give you guys a basic idea about what's involved. If you're not a tile guy and you don't have too much experience with this kind of thing, don't try to install a tile like this on your own. That's my opinion. This is probably the most difficult tile to work with. If you had a 6x8 ceramic tile or something like that, then it's relatively easy. But here it gets a little bit tricky, so you want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And I'm just going to keep on going. And at the end of it, you guys are going to see pictures of this project on my website, valenciaconstruction.ca. And that's it. So that's another message from Valencia Construction. Keep smiling.